Greetings, Om Namah Shivaya. Dr. Joseph Martin here, Don Galinqua. Maha Kranti, spiritual and material physical changes. And I'd like just to share a little quote from Jesus. As you know, he says, "Those who have ears, let them hear." This is a challenging video to make, and it's a challenging video for you to be watching. It's something that's been in my heart to show and share with you probably for 52 years now, so it's not something that I've come upon recently. What I'd like to share with you from many different angles, first from historical purposes and the history path of our planet Earth, then from anthropology and sociology, some from geopolitics and what's going on in the planet today with armaments and militarism, then psychology, including Freud and Jung, and some of our visionaries from all the different nations, including First Nations, who have had visions of this great imminent coming spiritual consciousness shift and the revolution, or shall we say, the destruction of the entire planet and most of the people on the planet coming up very likely very soon. Now, actually, maybe I'll start with physics, quantum mechanics and physics, and the laws of the universe. You are very well aware that the law of the universe is creation and then destruction and then recreation. It happens with our own bodies. We're born, we live and die, and then we are reborn again in a different physical body. And karma, by the way, and reincarnation is a spiritual science, and it is the law of the universe, not only on this tiny little planet Earth in our solar system in the northeast quadrant of the Milky Way galaxy, but indeed in all of the known universe, dark energy, dark matter, and the known stars and galaxies of the universe. Nature goes through this. We have spring and summer, then we have fall and winter, and the destruction of all the leaves and all the plants, and the frozenness. Now, it's true to say, as any historian will tell you, and you see in all of your high school history books, and all of it's available now, that the history of planet Earth, as far back as we can tell, to the earliest bands and tribes and so on, even in the Serengeti in Eastern Africa, all the way back to maybe 2 million years ago, has been fraught with killing, murder, and death, where individuals and families and groups and ethnic groups have been killing one another since time immemorial. And we have only to look at the 20th century, don't we, to realize that the surprise of the First World War, which happened so easily and quickly and unexpectedly to maybe everyone on the planet, was a shocker, to say the least. And there was no nation or its soldiers, women and men, and families who was untouched by the great devastation and destruction and murder of the First World War. And then not so many years later, there was the Second World War and the great Holocaust that happened after that, during that and after that. And then we had the Korean War and the Vietnam War and the Iraq Wars. And then we had all the wars in Africa, Rwanda, then we had Sarajevo and Yugoslavia. And now, if you listen to the news and you go online, you will just see that there are over 200 wars going on the planet at this time. This is just a summary and an update of the fact that warfare is part of what history is all about. Now, this Freud would say in his last book, perhaps his greatest book, his summary, published in 1935, Civilization and Its Discontents, which I'm just rereading now. I used to use this as a teaching book in psychology and anthropology back when I was working with graduate students and teaching them. The two main principles of human nature, according to Freud, and remember, he's a scientist. He has no interest in religion because he calls religion an illusion. And the two principles are eros, or love, and thanatos, or death and killing. or murder, if you like. And I will be doing another video on killing and murder and the difference between the two of them. Very important. So it seems intrinsic to human nature, as humans, Homo sapiens, and maybe we're unwise, sapiens means wise in Latin, unwise, but it just is human nature, and it's a science that we have to accept. Whether we like it or not, humans are the only species of all the species on the planet who glory and enjoy killing other human beings and killing other species and animals and plants and trees. And in fact, love destroying and destructing all the natural resources, the air, the water, the food, and everything on the planet. It seems that we're unable to stop this even if we wanted to. Now, let me just say a little bit about all the books I've been reading in the last 3 or 4 years. I like to stay on top of geopolitics and what is going on nation by nation in the world, to stay on top of all the military wars that are going on. And of course, that could be on all the 7 continents of the planet. So I read a lot about, of course, Canada, America, Russia, the European Union, Africa, the Middle East, China, and also Japan and all over the world. From all the books that I've been reading, and these are by economists, politicians, military specialists and military historians, people who look at the building up of armaments around the world in different countries, how the Cold War is now brewing up into another warm or hot war, and that will be, of course, the fallout will come as the whole world is destroyed, as this works in all the different places of the world, whether it's Russia and the Ukraine, or whether it's America and China, or China and Russia, or China and Europe, or China and India. Now, there's no blame in all this. I'm an historian, and I'm a social scientist, and I'm a trained anthropologist. And what I'm simply telling you is the truth as I've been able to see it. And I'm offering this to those who have ears to hear. And the ears that hear is the third ear in your heart, which is your intuition, which is your truth meter. Through the truth that you will hear in these words and are hearing now, and the simplicity and love, you will see that there's a message that needs to be heard for you to understand what is going on presently and what will go on in the years, maybe very short years to come, about the great revolution and destruction. Now, it's clear to me that we have, since the Second World War and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we have many more atomic bombs and nuclear bombs, and there are many, many countries of the world that have these bombs. There are over 25 countries that actually have these bombs stored up. Many more bombs than we had 50 years ago. And there are at least 250 times the amount of bombs to destroy the entire planet. Should some, and there will be some that will be released, and some perhaps even unwantedly, will be released on the planet, and there will be a nuclear war and holocaust that will destroy most of the countryside and the people in the nations of the world. And Babaji Nagaraj, who was someone who's been sharing this message with the world since he was here from 1970 to 1984, Babaji Nagaraj is Haidakan Baba, and he's the Vishwa Mahadam Bhagwan, known as, of course, Krishna and Shiva and the Father of creation in the universe. This message has been shared through Babaji with his many students and friends since about 1979, so this is not anything new. I myself have co-written some Earth Changes books with Babaji starting in the 1980s and the 1990s. It's clear to me that apart from all the things that we see going on in the planet, there are things that are going on that we don't really want to know about. And why? Because we're too afraid. But have the innocence of a little rabbit, or have the innocence of a little deer, and just open your heart and your intuition and be open to the truth. As Jesus has said, the truth will set you free. Not may, it will set you free. Truth, simplicity, love, and peace, and work. Now, it's clear that there are capabilities for nuclear war from space. There are all sorts of missiles, and I'm not going to go into the details that I've been studying in the last year on this, but there is a capability of nuclear bombs and atomic bombs being released and being not seen or known on radar until it's too late. And of course, reactionary counterattacks will likely be happening as well. Let's go back to the history before I carry on with some psychology. It's known in history, when you read the Vedas, that in the Battle of Kurukshetra, and then we have again in the Mahabharata with Lord Ravana, and we have again in the earlier historical time of Lord Ram and the Ramayana, we have in these ancient texts, which have been written in Sanskrit and now obviously translated into English, we know for certain that in these earlier historical times, in the Middle East, in the original breadbasket, if you like, in the Tigris-Euphrates River areas, there was the building up by Lord Ravana of a very potent, destructive atomic bomb. And it did go off, and it killed most of the population back thousands of years ago. And then, of course, we have the flood. Now, lest you think that this is simply story and mythology, and I, of course, had the great opportunity to speak with Joseph Campbell because I myself am a world mythologist, lest you think that this is simply fabrication or story, I would caution you. I would ask you to reread those texts and open your heart to the truth that is there. This is not the first time that this has happened on planet Earth. This use of atomic warfare has been used in prior, earlier historical times, and we have an unconscious lack of remembrance because of our fear. We do not want to remember the catastrophes of earlier times. We have catastrophobia. We have a fear of catastrophe, which is why many of you listening to this right now might really be wondering all of this and what you can feel and experience as I'm sharing it. Now, we know from the spiritual historian scientist Dr. Rudolf Steiner, who has done voluminous work from 1863 to 1925, the founder of anthroposophical medicine, the founder of the Waldorf schools, an architect, a scientist, a politician, an economist, and a lawyer. We know from his studies that we're in the fifth post-Atlantean root race, and we know from Plato in his many books, and particularly in the Republic, Plato, the great democratic writer and philosopher from ancient Greece in the 300s BC. We know that there have been other destructive bombs going off in late Atlantis. Plato attests to this. Dr. Rudolf Steiner attests to this. We know we're in the fifth post-Atlantean era, and we're about to move into the sixth world from the fifth world. The fifth world was Atlantis and this post-Atlantis time. Atlantis ended 10,000 years ago, and it had an earlier kind of war 23,000 years ago. And so let me go back to psychology and present-day circumstances on planet Earth. It's very clear for anybody who has the knowledge and the interest and the sense of adventure to look into these matters that what is ruling the planet right now is greed, selfishness, taking power away from other people, whether it's other religions, other nationalities, other ethnicities, others of sexual orientation or color, or of the middle class or the lower class. Now here I don't want to go into all the things in the different movements that are understanding what this is going on, but we can acknowledge the fact that Occupy Wall Street started many Occupy movements around the world. And many of us now are also looking into what's happening with the 1% elite. I am a scientist, and there's no point in laying blame because that's not what we do, and we don't need to do it, and it will get us nowhere. I have compassion for these people who are involved in political, military, governmental, and unjust law reforms in every nation and around the world, in all the nations. It's clear to say, though, that there's so much injustice, upset, killing, murder, not just of women and children, sexual abuse and sexual trafficking of children and of women around the world across borders, and people being bailed out by governments and people's monies, like banks being bailed out and so on. So many things that seem unjust to us. And I also need to point out the meteorological changes, the geographical and the weather-related changes going on the planet Earth right now. There are storms and larger hurricanes than we've ever had. Katrina is just one of them. Flooding everywhere, including right across Canada now in Manitoba, Saskatchewan today, on Canada Day 2014. In Ontario, tornadoes going on and heat waves there. And we have storms, floods, and then a lot of drawing out of land and desertification in China, in Africa, the Sahara more and more, and even in America, that we're losing all the water aquifers in the American Midwest and the American Southwest, and on and on and on. Now, as a natural scientist, this is something I have statistically, qualitatively looked at throughout my entire life in the 55 years that I've been a scientist. Anthropologist, psychologist, historian, and in many other ways. This is in the earthquakes, the fires. What we're really seeing is destruction of the land and, of course, the people and animals in the forests and the bioregional areas through fire and through water. So fire in Australia, fire in California, fire in Alberta, and lots of different places of the world. And of course, lots of flooding and toxic waters with human waste in it, virtually in many of the countries in Asia, certainly in China. And besides all that, we have the taking over and destruction of smaller indigenous cultures, whether it's the Tibetans or the Nepalese or it's the First Nations in any of the countries of the world, including Canada. There is an attempt to take over all of these cultures and to destroy their language, their culture, their world values, and their world beliefs and world ethos. Now, on a strictly level of, we can say, those who are connected to the mystical truth of spirit and are capable of reading the Akashic records or capable of looking with their deepest heart in mental intuition through their superconsciousness in their heart, and capable of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, intuiting, and knowing what has been happening and what will continue to happen. Now, we know of the Hopi prophecies that happened before the white people came to Turtle Island, before in the 1300s and 1400s. They are not the only First Nations that had these visions. I myself am a Mohawk, and we as a Mohawk Haudenosaunee Six Nations, we have had visions since the 1200s and 1300s when Daganoweda, the peacemaker, came and told us that we would be invaded by non-natives from another continent, meaning Europe. And that if they built their roads going north and south, that there would be peace and unity among the peoples, and all of us would be one big family and one big society. Well, that's still our hope, and it is possible. This peace will prevail, but not until the whole world is completely destroyed, physically, and the buildings will be left standing, but most of the people will die and go into spirit. More of that in a moment. The Australian Aborigines, the Maori from First Nations in New Zealand, many of the peoples who have visions in Siberia, in the Middle East, the Sufis, the Asians, many of the other wings of the Christian church, the Gnostics, and many others besides. I'm not just pointing them out. And Jesus actually said himself, I came not to bring peace, but to bring a sword of righteousness. Now, Carl Jung himself, and as you know, I am a Jungian analyst, now retired, just prior to his death in 1963, actually it was around this time of year, and the years before that when he was having heart attacks and going into coma and having visions, he did see 2/3 of the world being engulfed by nuclear, mushroom, and atomic bomb clouds. That frightened him, but he was courageous enough to show that people needed to understand that. And that, in fact, literally was 50 years ago now. So it's pertinent that I'm bringing forward Carl Jung's point of view here. Freud was quite right. We have the love eros theme inside our personal and collective priorities and principalities and our nature, and we also have the capacity for enjoying, dying, death, killing, and murder. And this is something that will not go unassuaged. The earth has been filled with blood over so many centuries and millennia in virtually all the continents of the world and the planet. And there's a karmic law, which is the second law of thermodynamics, that for every cause or every circumstance or happenstance, there's an equal and opposite circumstance to correct it. So everything that we've done in terms of war and killing and murder, mass murder, Holocaust on all levels, I don't just mean in the Second World War Holocaust, there needs to be some kind of cleansing retribution, some cleansing revolution. It will be a revolution that will destroy the physical material world as we know it, and it will be a revolution of spirituality and mostly higher consciousness. From psychological and collective terms, we can see that in this century, 20th century, and in the 21st century, so far, just up to 2014, the lower nature of our humanality, our animal nature, our instincts for killing, revenge, murder, stealing, lying, cheating, greed, selfishness, sexual abuse and torture of other people, wanton torture, and getting some kind of a sadistic pleasure from it. This is our lower nature, and it's a call to your basic higher consciousness now, as you're listening, for all those good souls on the planet, in truth, in love, in simplicity, and in a sense of goodness and kindness and respect, to honor yourself and your soul and the goodness you are. You may have done some horrible things in your life, in this life or in past lives, but as you look deep into your heart, you will see the goodness and the light there, the golden light, the light of the Christ, if you like, which is a higher super consciousness in the spiritual realms of the higher natures and knowledge of this universe. And this is what will carry you through this dark time. Those who refuse to see this or accept this or acknowledge the goodness in their soul will obviously be wiped away through death and destruction and move on to another place where they will be able to continue their evolution in the way that suits them. Because remember, life is about choice. It's about freedom, self-determination, and it's about the courage and the self-confidence to make the choices you know is right for yourself. So when you make the right choice for goodness, kindness, respect, the basic 7 values that most of the First Nations, indigenous peoples have in their hearts and peacemakers in the world, then you will be saved in this time of great revolution and great destruction. I myself have had visions of this since I was a 7 and 8-year-old boy. At that time, I didn't really know what I was to make of it, but I kept it tucked away in my heart. And now I'm sharing it with you. And I had to make sure I was a scientist and analyzed all these things: history, anthropology, psychology, quantum mechanics, spiritual science, higher realms of being and knowledge, all of these things, including microbiology. So it's very clear to say that what you need to do is not to do anything except to use the one mantra that Babaji Nagaraj or Hadekan Baba has said has the ability to counteract all these nuclear bombs and atomic bombs that will go off and destroy the world physically. And what is that mantra? That mantra is the best mantra that we all now use, whether in yoga or meditation. It comes from the ancient Hindu tradition. I myself have been saying it for well over 40 years now, and that is Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. You can look it up online. Om Namah, sometimes with an A at the end, and Shivaya, Shiva, and sometimes mostly with a YA at the end. Om Namah Shivaya. What does it mean? It means the greatest intelligence. It means the greatest protection. It means the greatest love. It means the greatest light. It means the greatest creation. It means the righteous power to destroy all that is negative, evil, and unkind in people's consciousness, and the vibration is so powerful, it is more powerful than all the nuclear and atomic bombs going off at the same time. Just repeat that one mantra constantly in your mind and your heart, day in and day out, day in and day out, and you will get used to the power of that. That will protect you. Now, there's nothing you need to do to prepare for this. Don't start hoarding food or water or clothes or housing. You just stay in an innocent, open, childlike heart with truth, simplicity, and love, and peace, kindness, and respect, and humility, integrity, and honesty, and a sense of unity with all our sisters and brothers on the planet, including all our relations, as we say, Mitakuyo Yatsen. By that I mean the plants and trees and animals and elements. This is the most important thing. Nothing will be able to stop this. It's, if you like karmic, and if you don't like that word, you just know that this is a universal law. There is no politician that can stop it. There is no military country or person that can stop it. There's no one to blame. There's no society, nation, religion, or ethnic group that's to blame. They are not in charge here. Who is in charge is the spirit world. The spirit world that has created this universe, including this tiny little wee planet here, and all of us, the root races, the 5 root races on this little planet Earth, the 3rd rock from the sun. The spirit, Maha Babaji Nagaraj, Hadikan Baba, the Father of the universe, the Creator, and not out of any sense except goodness, is he saying, it's now time to cleanse the negativity, the negative thought beliefs, the greed, the harm, the killing, the murder, the horrendous way we treat one another here on this planet, and the animals, and the Earth Mother herself. This is why we need this, and it's also why it's inevitable. It is for the first time in Earth history the chance and the opportunity, in a goodness way, for the spirit world that rules the universe and this tiny little planet, and all of us human beings who think we're so much and so great, to cleanse, to purify. I'd like you to just stay with the notion of purification. This is a purification. It's a cleansing. It's a necessity. We can't live in this, I'll use this word shit, we have human feces in our food, in our water, in our land, but we have toxic human thoughts of murder and killing. You see it in all the television shows and all the movies. They're all about violence and murder and degradation of other people and killing and murder. You know, the sexual rape and torture just seems endless. And this is important then for this to stop. And there's only one way for it to stop. There's no way, as you might have already surmised, that just by saying, oh, let's be peaceful, it will happen. It can never happen that way. It's not human nature. It's not human history. We need a deep cleansing, purification. Say constantly, Om Namah Shivaya. That itself is the positive cleansing, purification power of the Spirit and creation to cleanse all that needs cleansing at this time. And as you say it, you will be protected. You will be given truth, simplicity, and love. You will know where to be, when to be at the right time. You must work hard, as Babaji has said. This is a time of karma yoga. You need to just not be lazy, but you need to go out and do work. Do good things for yourself, your family, your community, anyone you meet, whatever village or place you happen to be on the planet. Always be good and be kind. This is what this is about. Those of us who will be left behind will be the ones to start a whole new peaceful world. And yes, there will be a utopian paradise. After all you've heard me say, you know that I'm speaking from the heart, from the deepest pain that we've all suffered as human beings in all cultures and religions for millennia. This is anything but a pipe dream, but it will not happen until we have the final revolution, destruction, and it will be through many things that I've already mentioned. Earthquakes, floods, fires, storms, pollution, and of course, nuclear and atomic war. No country is to blame. The people in charge of these countries are not the people in charge here. It really is on a higher level of we can say, the spiritual battle of all against all. Many people who are historians and spiritual scientists had known about this for centuries and millennia, and now is our time for purification and cleansing. So I would say to each and every one of you, take this into your heart, be of good faith, be courageous, take this as an adventure, be hopeful. This is a joyful thing. Finally, we don't have to live in this immoral morass that is so destructive of everyone around us, including our sense of ourself, identity, our heart, our feelings, our emotions, our livelihoods. Take no thought for money or work. Don't take thought for food or clothing. Just be totally trusting like a young child or a young dog or a young rabbit or a young deer, and just be honest and open and vulnerable and trusting. And you will get through this. Those of you who are listening are meant to be listening, and you have opened up your hearts, your minds to the higher superconsciousness of these great earth changes, the Maha Kranti, that the earth will go through in this century. And I've been reading lots of books by military people and historians, and they've already outlined this, not from the point of view that I've outlined it, but they know the internecine wars that are going on between all the countries and nations and ethnic groups on the planet, and they know there will be a third world war. Unlike the previous wars, which lasted 4 years in the first war and 6 years in the second, this war will be over in a day or two. The destruction will be fairly much complete, though no country will be left unchanged. I won't go into the details of which countries might be the best to be in, but the safety is only in your own heart. It's in the courage that you get from being truthful, from loving, and being the love you are innately in your soul and spirit, and trusting like you've never trusted before, trusting spirit, trusting your heart, trusting your intuition. This is most essential for you to move through this. Sometimes members of your family won't be the ones to be saved. That's okay, no judgment. This is just the way it is. But you know that you, listening to me now, are the ones who will be here to do the work of truth and reconciliation and rebuilding, recalibration, a new world. There will be peace. There will be many centuries of peace after this is all over, this cleansing and purification that is karmic and necessary and essential. My main point again is this. The power of the vibration of this one mantra is what I would highly suggest if you want to stay focused, determined, and have courage and strength in the time before, during, and after this series of events. You must say Om Namah Shivaya constantly, silently in your mind and heart and body, and let the powerful unifying vibration cleanse and purify you, give you infinite courage, give you spiritual strength, give you willpower, give you determination to work hard, to love those around you, share with them, be open-hearted, know this is coming, and accept it with joy, peace, and equanimity, knowing that nobody can change or stop this. Nobody can stop it. Nor should we want, because we've had enough of it. Whether we've known it consciously or not, we've had enough. And the time is now, the time is nigh, the time is near. This is very important. We have some of our popular culture books and movies and television shows that have been speaking to us about this in the last 4 or 5 years. And now I'm referring to the Hunger Games. And I highly recommend you read the books, the 3 books, and see the movies. And we have the TV show Revolution on television, which is on City Channel in Canada. There are many other books, stories, novels, movies around this too, giving us some preparation and understanding that this is unavoidable and we need to look forward to it. But the key in all this is to be living in love, simplicity, and truth, and peace and kindness with everyone you meet. Treat them as a divine, higher human being. We're going to be moving spiritually and consciously in our evolution to a higher place. We're going to be operating and living out of our higher consciousness. We're going to be operating and living out of our spiritual nature. Remember, we were the ancients that came to Earth many billions of years ago, and there will be new root races that will come to the Earth in the greater time of peace to come. So we are now going to give up our lower, selfish, greedy, murderous nature, the animal side, the instinctual side, and our whole system, our consciousness will change. Our neurological systems, everything about our consciousness will be from our higher nature, from our heart, from our superconsciousness, and our sense of one heart, one mind, one drum, one life, one family, one society. Crazy Horse Tashunkawitko was fond of saying this. Bob Marley was fond of saying this, one heart, one love. These were prophets in our times. And Nelson Mandela as well, and Martin Luther King Jr., and many, many others as well. Gandhi, Tolstoy, and many others have been helping us find the way to this truth about what is happening and what is about to happen. So therefore I say to you, be of great joy, be of great cheer, be of great adventure, be courageous and supportive, be in your heart, be open-hearted, be kind, be loving, be supportive of all those animals and people around you. This is a time that's never happened on the planet Earth before and will never, thank goodness, ever have to happen again. It will happen. It's a time of the great Maha Kranti, the great spiritual consciousness revolution as we move into our higher nature and become one with all that is and with each other, irrespective of religion or color or sexual orientation. And it's a time when the whole material physical world will be gone. Many of the buildings might be left standing, but most of the people, whether they were lying or sitting or standing, will simply disintegrate. The soul is immortal and eternal. These souls will be taken to another place to find some healing, some evolution, and some patterning and recalibration and growth. Those of you left here, be of great cheer, work hard, be diligent, do all you can do to be kind-hearted and supportive of yourselves. This will give you the greatest self-confidence and self-worth. It will help you find your true inner spiritual identity. Babaji Nagaraj and all the great spiritual masters in the heavens and here on earth with us, including all the archangels and all the spiritual masters of all the world religions and those in other galaxies and star systems around. They are all with us. They're supporting us, looking after us. Be awake, be alert. And Babaji says, I am always with you in your heart, protecting you, loving you, keeping you alive, supporting you through this great adventure. Be of great courage and love. And that's a message from Babaji Nagaraj, Harikan Baba. And may the blessings of all this come to pass for you. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya.